Before we get going on today's interview, if you're not already reading Must Read Alaska every day, you're missing half the story. Must Read Alaska is where Alaskans go to find out what's actually happening in this state. The politics, the policy, the people, without the spin you get from the legacy press. Just straight talk Alaska first. You can support Must Read Alaska with a subscription. Use the code ENERGY at checkout and you'll take 10% off all our annual plans. That's ENERGY, Energy. Go to mustreadalaska.com. Hit subscribe on your podcast app and keep Alaska's most trusted independent news source running. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show, Energy and Business Edition. I'm Todd. Today, we're talking about something that literally keeps the lights on and the heat flowing for hundreds of thousands of Alaskans. Reliable, in-state natural gas produced right here in Cook Inlet by the only 100% locally owned producer and operator in Alaska, HEX LLC. HEX isn't some distant corporate player. It's headquartered in Anchorage. It operates critical offshore and onshore infrastructure that powers Railbelt homes, businesses, and military installations. And just last week, they made big news, unifying all their Alaska operations under a single, strong HEX brand while announcing continued investment in new drilling in Cook Inlet. Before we bring our guest on, let's set the scene. The Kitchen Lights Unit, or KLU, sits offshore in Cook Inlet, nearly 83,400 acres of some of the most prospective natural gas acreage in the state. Discovered and developed over the years by earlier operators, the unit faced challenges, went through bankruptcy, and in 2020 was acquired by Alaskan John Hendrix through his company, HEX LLC. What was once managed from out of state with minimal local hires is now 100% Alaskan-owned, Alaskan-operated, and focused exclusively on delivering clean, affordable natural gas to Alaskans. In 2025 alone, HEX doubled its natural gas production from the Allegra Leigh offshore platform. They now operate the top two producing natural gas wells in all of Cook Inlet. They've poured more than $40 million back into the local economy. And this winter, their gas helped keep Railbelt homes warm when it mattered most. Cook Inlet itself holds an estimated 19 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. That's roughly 244 years of supply at today's consumption rates. Yet, too often, we hear talk of shortages or reliance on imports. HEX is proving that discipline, local investment can change that story. Joining us today is the man behind it all, Mr. John Hendrix, President and CEO of HEX LLC. A Homer native, civil engineer with more than 40 years in Alaska's energy sector, former oil and gas advisor to Governor Bill Walker, and recently named Outstanding Alaskan of the Year. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So, John, before we dive into the rebrand in the future, can you give us kind of a big picture? What does HEX do for Alaska right now, and why should every Railbelt resident care?
Wow. I mean, I was listening to you, and I think first and foremost, it shows that Alaskans can enter this market. I mean, I used to be a commercial fisherman, and a lot of people are out there, commercial fishermen in Alaska, but not too many venture into oil and gas properties. And sometimes, as a kid that grew up on a homestead out East Road in Homer, I got to pinch myself. And so, but I think the biggest thing is that we contribute currently 10% of Cook Inlet gas to the residents of the Railbelt, up from 5% last year. With us drilling last year and future years, Alaskans were protected from shortages. On top of that, a lot of Alaskans don't understand. They just see Henry Hub price. They don't really look. And you can go to EIA.gov and you can show that Alaskan homes had cheaper gas prices than the state of Texas homes for over 6 decades. We're anywhere between been like 7th to the 11th cheapest state in the country. Now, keep in mind, for every $1 increase, that's $100 million it cost Alaskans. So everybody's always say, why help Cook Inlet?
Hmm.
That's the reason why. So I'm proud of the fact, and we have a lot of Alaskan employees, and we're really Alaska higher focused. And it's a can-do attitude, and I'm blessed with a lot of good people that are committed.
Oh, that's fantastic. You and I first had a chance to meet a few years ago on the South Central Mayor's Energy Coalition. So we were on that technical committee together. And as we were going through and sharing, just as you did, one of the few things that still remains standing in terms of what can solve this problem is Cook Inlet natural gas. So let's go back to the beginning of the HEX story. The kitchen lights unit has a long history. You had Forest Oil Company, Renaissance Alaska, Escapita, Fury, Energy Capital Partners, and bankruptcy. So walk us through, how did you get involved? Why did you decide to take this risk? And what did the unit look like when you stepped in?
Okay, let's just back up a few years. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. I mean, we picked up a fixer upper, but back up. What happened was they collided three different units into one, and the
Mm,
DNR basically approved a lot of things as far as royalties, and that's why you always hear us talk about royalties. Alaskans don't
hmm.
know a royalty is over your gross, and so we were blessed with 12.5% state royalties and another 12.5% royalties that were awarded to others and blessed by the state. And I
Hmm.
can't peel those back. I wish I could. I honestly think the AG should investigate a few of them, okay, for the
Mm,
benefit of the state.
hmm.
But that is that. Um, but so we were basically, like I said, we were faced with a fixer upper. And so we brought a management team in, and we basically, for 50 years experience in oil and gas, and
Hmm.
basically leading global production technical limited to BP, going around the world. I mean, I've worked in every continent except Antarctica, brought those skill sets and my team into this
Hmm.
equation, and we worked on all the operational issues. But operational issues was just one thing, and very one small thing. It's
Hmm.
what we were burdened with as far as the economics. 25% royalties. We bought the company for less than basically 30 some odd million, all intact at first. Some
Hmm.
people say I got the numbers all wrong, but of that, of working, we were the state appraised our property at 82 million, just the assets without the wells and without the gas.
Hmm.
And IRS only allowed us to depreciate from 20. So that was a big one, and we're going to court here soon on it with the state Supreme Court, just to
Mm.
how they're unfairly taxing us.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty interesting history, and we hear just all of the various partners that were involved in that up until you've come in. And so this kind of brings us to where we're at right now. So last week, you guys had, and this is HEX LLC, had a really big announcement. HEX is rebranding. So Fury Operating Alaska is now HEX Operating LLC. HEX Cook Inlet is now HEX Energy LLC. Everything is under this HEX umbrella. So tell everybody why now, and what does this rebrand signal to the market, to the regulators, and to Alaskans?
Yeah, I think it's significant as we're an Alaskan company.
Hmm.
HEX stands for Hendrix Exploration. We want to explore. We want to be bigger than we are now. We are an Alaskan-owned operator,
Hmm.
and we are not uh, a utility, right?
Hmm.
So it's very important that people to understand is that HEX is an Alaskan oil and gas company.
Hmm.
And we would like to basically be looked at as the trusted go-to Alaskan company that knows oil and gas.
Hmm.
Sadly, I think it's amazing to me is how little we really know, and I'll even say how little I really knew about what oil and gas companies were all about and how it was managed with royalties and
Hmm.
overrides and underrides and taxes until I owned a company.
Hmm.
but it's but we're here to help Alaskans navigate through this because legislators and everybody should understand this game. This is an alpha industry for the state of Alaska, and we need to understand it because Alaska, I think, has been duped a number of times. And one thing we wanted to show by other pretenders out there to be oil and gas players that we're an Alaskan oil and gas company. We're here to stay, and we want to help Alaskans, and we want to be looked at as the go-to person, go-to company to consult with Alaska on anything in the future.
No, that's good, and you bring up a really interesting point about Cook Inlet. And it was just a few years ago that all of the conversation really started around there's a shortage of gas. But you would remember this better than I would. 10 years prior to that, we had the exact opposite problem when we're looking at storage. And so the Cook Inlet has just always been kind of right in there in between. And we've had various legislation that has come through in order to deal with this, Cook Inlet question, quote unquote, if you will. But I think what we're here is we're talking about a really positive story. I mean, you're already drilling again. You have two more wells planned for 2026. So you've got some pretty big future plans here. So how does this fit into the bigger picture of Cook Inlet's massive gas resources and Alaska's energy security?
Well, 19 T's of gas equivalent to 244 years, and you mentioned that in the
Hmm.
Railbelt availability. And if you put that into oil, I think it's close to 3.5 billion standard billion barrels of oil. If that
Hmm.
was on the North Slope, people would be going after it like crazy, especially now with the lease sale and PRA.
Yep.
And it shows that we shouldn't bypass an Alaskan resource like Cook Inlet, like
Hmm.
this resource. It should always be in the mix. Cook Inlets provide Alaskans for gas for their homes, and like I stressed, over 60 years, and it's all cheaper. A lot of people don't understand that it's an island economy. We can only
Hmm.
produce how much people need. We've always produced for 60 years dependable gas for Alaskans, and that's pretty good surety, right?
Hmm.
190 million a day is what Alaskans need. So ask anybody, if you could only sell 190 million a day, would you go out and drill more wells than 190 million a day? No, we don't. We always just drill a little bit more than what we need for security. And we
Hmm.
could drill more. And I think one thing that we're trying to tell everybody is we've taken for granted Cook Inlet gas,
Hmm.
but we haven't realized the importance of how it is as a key ingredient to our energy reliance. I mean, it's if we didn't have Cook Inlet gas today, where would our state be? We'd be like Nome 5 years ago when the Russians had to save Nome. We'd have someone come in to save Anchorage. Right now, I heard some of the utility companies were paying $52,000 a year for diesel, and now they might pay 153 no 100 no 52 million. Now they're paying 153 million this coming year for diesel at current diesel prices. One thing
Hmm.
Alaskans also need to know is our gas price doesn't fluctuate with world economies or world issues. We sell long-term contracts. I've signed a 5-year contract to show my commitment. We
Hmm.
spend about $40 million a year drilling. We're going to spend another 40 this year, and it basically gives you set prices. You know what your prices are going up and down, not going to go up and down, and it's set for like 5 years at a time. Everybody
Hmm.
knows what the price is. The only problem is we don't want to over drill because we don't get paid for it, and we're
Hmm.
different than a utility in that we use our money to do it. We don't go to the RCA and get them to bless a project, and then the citizens of Alaska has to pay for all the capital out of their back pockets, all the
Hmm.
operating costs, all the utilities, all the bonuses for those individuals, all the G&A, and
Hmm.
sometimes up to 11.9% profit. So if you build $1 billion import facility, you got to pay $119 million a year in profit to those that built it, and their market cap goes up $1 billion, but you as a citizen paid for it. Get real. Really? Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things about just the importance of Cook Inlet, and one of the things that I've heard from many folks, because I'm a firm believer that the Cook Inlet is not out of gas. I mean that's the very simple statement that most people will say, but just this past November, we had the Department of Natural Resources come out and give a pretty big kudos to what was happening in the Kitchen Lights, what was happening over at the Beluga River field. So we know that an investment program and like a sustained program can do a lot for keeping this resource central to the energy security conversation. But one of the things that keeps coming up, and you might be able to share from your experience, is this kind of technically recoverable and just the complexity around the drilling in the Cook Inlet. But what's been your experience over the years with HEX, basically maybe coming at that question in terms of the harder to reach gas or the easy stuff is already gone? What would you say to that?
Currently right now, we haven't provided the landscape for anybody to spend more money in Cook Inlet
Hmm.
because everybody is wanting to either bring fuel gas in from Canada or wherever
Mm-hmm.
it's come from, or down from the slope, which I'm okay with. Let me just be very clear to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 100% supporter of getting LNG exported out of here and using
Mm-hmm.
LNG gas to pay for Alaskans projects.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think we need a pipeline to paid for by Alaskans to save us for heating. I think Harvest Import Facility can do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the 19 Ts, and then of the 19 Ts, how much can we actually use? Where is it?
Mm-hmm.
I think with first, like I told you earlier, when gas was at 8, now it's at 12 plus, right?
Mm. Yep.
That's another $400 million that Alaskans are paying for their gas.
Mm.
$400 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now the average WACOG, the weighted average, is lower than that, but
Mm.
if it's trending with it out to 12, eventually the average is going to be 12,
Yep.
right? So that's hard for the consumer, but it also opens the door for those wanting to risk and explore, because
Mm-hmm.
now when prices go up, right, your economics improve for exploring.
Coming to Anchorage, it's the Beatles versus the Stones. Get ready for a musical showdown, a British invasion. You'll finally answer the greatest debate in rock history. Who's better, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones? Two of the country's best tribute bands put on the greatest concert that never was, right here in Discovery Theatre. Tickets on sale now at senatix.com. Presented by Alaska Airlines, and proceeds benefit the Alliance Alaska Region Baseball. Get your tickets now, senatix.com.
We can. One interesting fact, just by talking to you, I did just a simple thing, is that all of our gas that we produce, we have 84,500 acres or something like that in Kitchen Lights.
Mm-hmm.
You know how much acreage that we're producing out of?
Oh, I'm sure it's like less than 5%.
It's like 12,000 acres. Or no,
There you go.
1,200 acres. Sorry, it's
1200.
1,200 acres.
Oh, there you
1,200
go.
acres. It's not even. It's not even. It's what's that like?
Yeah, I mean,
Less than
it's
2%, right?
when you look at the map of the Cook Inlet where the Kitchen Light sits, I mean, that's a massive block that you're talking about, and 1,200 acres is producing that. I mean, that's incredible.
I'm not saying there's some that's always going to be like what the Kitchen Lights and
Right.
the platform setting on, but I think
Sure.
there's gas around us that we can go further. But am I going
Hmm.
to sink a platform for $300 million more when I have threats that I'm going to be like John Sims with Instar says, if we bring imported gas from a foreign country that doesn't pay royalties to the state, he's going to put it cooking out of business. He's not going to put us out of business because our gas prices are higher. He needs
Hmm.
the market share of his gas to bring in, because he's got to convert high priced LNG to natural gas, and he's got to
Hmm.
sell the people's homes, that expensive gas, because we already have gas here. He
Yep.
needs the market share to fund a $1 billion import facility.
Yeah, and it's on the heating side of things, and that's even before we start get into the gas used for the industrial fuel and whatnot.
Yeah, you can't blame people for trying to make $1 billion. If you and I went into business together and brought an LNG facility, you and
Hmm.
I be net worth would increase $500 million immediately if the RCA approved it, and we'd split 119 guaranteed profit margin.
Yeah.
So you'd both make about $60 million net profit a year
Hmm.
after everybody else paid for our work. That's pretty good business, Alaskans.
Oh man, that is it
Who
just
wouldn't
goes
bite
to
onto
show.
that deal? The RCA is
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's right. And and it highlights a lot of the difficulties that you're talking about, right? Is like you've just got a big disparity on these projects that are out there, and I think we've lost the ability to kind of look at the gift right in front of us,
Yeah.
and that is the Cook Inlet and how it has been, and it will continue to be. I mean, even all the gas line conversation that's happening right now, the actual date of this, it may not materialize on the particular year in which we're talking about. And so we're going to need to make sure that we've got that gas secure. And that comes from like what you're talking about here with the increased drilling campaign. And then, the import facility is still too subject to schedule delays and things like that. I mean, these mega projects, they just don't happen overnight. Just like with drilling programs, is you got to take the risk and go out and look for it.
Yeah. I mean, we're a resource. We're here to help the state. You
Hmm.
know, sadly, I think, we're always here to consult with anybody in the state that wants to talk about my experience and how I can help the state.
Hmm.
They haven't utilized as much of it they should have. But
Hmm.
what we need in Alaska is someone that can bring all parties together, be transparent, understand the risks, understand the benefit,
Hmm.
paint the prize, the picture of what you're trying to achieve, put people at ease, and move forward.
Yeah.
But I think the state of Alaska, like Glen Farm, we should both try to minimize our risks so we can maximize our profits.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you go into business, right?
Right. And you do. I mean, my biggest challenge as an Alaskan is what happens if no one wants my gas 2 years before the pipeline comes to Anchorage
Hmm.
and we elect not to drill.
Hmm. Yeah.
Or,
That's a question that not many people have wanted to answer.
well, what happens? I mean, if we went to drill last year, you probably would have had problems.
Hmm.
I plead with people and I said, don't put me in that position as Alaskan because I'll probably foolishly drill, right? Which
Hmm.
isn't right. But I don't want to be the devil here. But why am I put in a position where I feel like I have to drill to keep people warm when no one wants to protect my company after the pipeline's built or
Yeah.
during the construction, right?
Yeah.
Because gas will be very expensive if we don't continue. So I think people need to understand is out of all of this is that this is a critical energy infrastructure that
Hmm.
we've forgotten how important it is to Alaskans, and we need
Yep.
to make sure that we protect it now, during
Hmm.
construction, and after construction, because redundancy of supply is very important. Jobs
Yep.
to Alaskans very important.
Yep.
Making sure the government doesn't put private enterprise out of business is important.
Hmm.
There's a lot of abandonment that still has to occur out in the Cook Inlet. The state doesn't want
Yep.
to be stuck with that when they take over. And is it fair to use federal funds to put Alaskan businesses or American businesses out of business?
Yeah. Those are very existential questions when you're looking at what it what it costs to do business to bring a natural resource like the Cook Inlet gas to market. And I've got one final question for you, John, just to kind of build off of this. So, what message do you have for young Alaskans thinking about careers in energy, or for the policymakers? So, are there other things that you would want to see more from the policymakers or from local investment that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, it goes back to, we're a virgin state when it comes to oil and gas. It's not like Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's a silent economy on the North Slope. It's basically out in the inlet. It's kind of a silent economy. A lot of people don't know it. For the young Alaskans, get
Mm-hmm.
experience in a technical field or in the field, actually working, logistics, engineering, technical geoscientist, and then then go into broader areas. Don't try to be an influencer with no experience and just act like a blogger, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, people will find out really you're just full of bluff and you don't know really anything. But for policymakers, therefore, learn about oil and gas, especially Alaskan oil and gas policymakers. know
Yep.
how it works, how it contributes vastly in so many ways to the state, and how you can impose policy without fully, how can you impose policy without fully knowing the ramifications of it? You need to understand what that is. And don't get in a place where you cannot make change. You're afraid of making change because you don't know the ramifications. So you go along with the crowd or you go around to get out of session. But so understand that. A lot of people don't understand that the oil and gas industry pays out 12.5% royalties. That's off the top. Mining only pays 2, fishing 0, poor timber, we ran them out of the state. There's no business hardly for timber anymore. Royalties, like I said, that's off the gross. That's before deductions.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, we pay production tax and very high property tax.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've seen the debate right now going on, right, with the special sessions. I mean, due to our success last year, our property tax payment increased $750,000. Just the bill I have to write, $750,000 more.
Yeah.
And I'm already disputing the basis of how it was found because they didn't want to look at use value. They didn't want to look at purchase value. All they wanted to look at was the original cost new less depreciation. And they didn't take consideration of the sales price. And I don't think anybody in Alaska would like that on a personal note. And neither do I. But I think more for Alaskans, it's get out in the field, look what Alaska's resources has to offer, either oil and gas or fishing or timber or mining, but try to find a job that basically that ties you to some kind of trade or skill first, and then build from that. Everybody needs a foundation.
Yep.
And a foundation shouldn't be, I know how to talk on the radio, right? Because I think you're a valuable radio talk because you're an engineer, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, when you come in as an engineer talking to an engineer, I think you have a lot more validity and you have a lot more insights on how things work.
Yeah.
Right.
It's great advice, and my, 17 years in the industry working onshore and offshore across the United States, and like we've got some shared experience there in Russia as well. I think I would be remiss to end this and on, just here are some things we got to look at. But when we're talking about the oil and gas industry, we're talking about some of the most technological implementation of whatever, right? Whether it's the downhole tools, it's the surface equipment, it's how we actually go and process the chemicals. But John, can you share with the audience maybe a cool piece of technology that you guys have implemented that maybe the general public wouldn't know, but is exciting for engineers or maybe the young people that are coming up?
Yeah. First, very simple. Everybody's banked at Wells Fargo or someplace, right? Or North Rim,
Yep.
and they put their money down the tube, right?
Yep.
We
That's right.
send our state water samples in for testing through our pipeline through a pig, and that just sends them from offshore to onshore, just like you're making a deposit. So you don't have to do helicopter flights, putting crews at risk.
Oh my goodness.
And the other thing we do and that's new, as part of our fixer upper plan. Another thing we do is basically is this year with Vault, and we're doing it in conjunction with Hillcorp, is how we've increased the number of well slots we have as we've gone to a dual wellhead system.
Oh,
So you
nice.
got a 30-inch conductor.
Yep.
Inside of that 30-inch conductors, we run some 13-inch, and then we put 9 5/8 inside of it. So we have two wells inside one major conductor. Generally, everybody, one conductor equals one well, but we doubled that up. And so those 2 extra slots we had, now we make 4 wells out of the 2 slots. And so that's a pretty good technological advantage that we have right now. And then we'll get into sidetracking later, and then how we look for gas from the geoscience side is good. All kinds of little seismic tricks that you do. I learned a lot by shooting seismic with Apache. It's basically how do you tie seismic data to actual well data, and then mapping that, and then what they're doing on the North Slope, like the Brookian Formation, reprocessing seismic to see shallow formations, shallow oil and gas. It's exciting what's out there. I like companies like Fox. He's down south in Soldotna, is got coil tubing going. It's a young Alaskan that's sort of like the same career path as I had as a Schlumberger engineer.
Mm-hmm.
He's now has his own well servicing company, coming up with a lot of great things. He's doing the cementing
cool.
on the platform. But yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm sure I missed a few things. Some things I can't share, but
Oh yeah. I
but
tell you what, the little pig, the messenger pig, that is probably one of the coolest things that I've heard. I mean, we normally would stuff all the tracking devices in there, but I never even would have thought to say, here's a way we could deliver critical information by using existing infrastructure. I mean, that simple, creative, technical. I mean, you got to love the oil field in that regard.
yeah, I mean, we got to take a sample every day and we ship it down the pipeline. Well, at least 3 times a week we have to ship it.
I can remember signing the bills for all the helicopters we had to fly to get samples sent down, just to the point at which we could put them on an airplane to go and send them somewhere else. But
Yeah. And then I don't know if you heard about it, but 2 years ago we did the first Beyond flight. That's beyond line of sight with a drone
yeah,
ever
that
in
was cool.
America. And we went from onshore at our facility 15 miles to our platform.
Yeah, I remember seeing
Beyond
the
line
press
of sight.
release on
First
that.
time
That
in
was,
American history that anybody's flown, and first time in Alaska, but
yeah,
basically for this incident for all of America to a platform. Had never been done before, and would like to
that is,
continue to pursue the drone technology and how it can help
yeah,
villages and everybody else.
yeah, that's really cool. Well, John, I
Oh,
want to, yeah, go
all
ahead.
right,
What you got?
So one thing's coming out pretty soon is I used
Okay.
to coach wrestling in Homer. I founded Popeye Wrestling Club, and one of my guys, he's just like 55 now. Fortune Seas, Ian Pitzman, out of Homer, is partnered with us, and we're bringing a 190-foot Edison Schwest vessel up that we acquired, and
Mm-hmm.
it should be leaving Port Fourchon hopefully this weekend and be in Alaska the 1st of July. And so we hope it's here by the 4th, and it will be helping serve the Cook Inlet area in Alaska on any commercial need. But first and foremost, to support our platform, getting more oil and gas out of the ground for Alaskans.
That is awesome. That is great news to hear. That is
Yeah,
really cool.
no, it's good. It's managed by a Homer company where I'm from, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to employ their people and staff, and he's coordinating, the captains and mates to crew that, and we'll have a reliable ship to provide us support.
Very cool. Well, John, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be here today with us and to talk about the rebrand with HEX. That's exciting. Congratulations. And just to share some of this background on Cook Inlet, I mean, it's a historic field. It's been there for many years and it's continued to provide a lot of value. And I think everybody's going to have a much bigger appreciation for the work that you're doing, the fact that it is locally grown, if you will, and all of the plans that you guys have here in the future. So before we go, is there any place that people can go and find out more about your company?
I think all we have is a LinkedIn address right now.
LinkedIn?
Yeah,
All right.
Lauren set that up, and but don't believe
Well,
all the stuff you read. We're just trying to do the right thing.
perfect. Well, we'll make sure to put the LinkedIn address in there for you guys, so that way, if anybody wants to follow the press releases or any other cool tech that you guys are implementing there on the platform and at your facility. So, uh, for more information, you can also find work at mustreadalaska.com, and we have the full story on the HEX rebrand and the continued Cook Inlet investment. And we'll include many of the links here that we've talked about in the show notes. So that's our energy and business segment. I'm Todd. Stay warm, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on the Must Read Alaska Show.